Welcome to Highly Inquisitive, where we ditch the elusive myth of balance and embrace the beautiful messiness of life. I'm Gabs, your host, and I'm here to share how I am building a life I love full of bold dreams without waiting for permission from anyone. In just 10 minutes, you'll get real talk on conquering fear, ditching self-doubt, and chasing your dreams without being so freaking overwhelmed. Ready for a life that's more fun, less stressful, and designed just for you to be your best self? Let's do it. Surprise! This week's episode of the Highly Inquisitive podcast is going to be just a little bit different because I am out on the first leg of our Confidence pop-up tour that we are giving away copies of the Women Thrive book at, and I didn't have time to record a podcast episode while I was on this tour, but also sharing this book and signed copies of this book with so many women who are just desperate for support or to know that someone else has been through what they've been through has just lit a fire under me that we need more of these confidence pop-ups and we need to be together more. So I'm heads down doing this leg of the tour so I can try and reach as many of you in as many of your cities as possible. So with that, I just want to drop a surprise piece of my chapter with some good information if you have ever gone through an emotional relapse. I hope you enjoy. Please share your feedback with me. Would love to know how you feel about what you've heard of the chapter. Apparently, trauma relapses are a thing. If you have walked your own grief journey, you know the ups and downs. The I'm doing so great, and then the grief just hit me out of nowhere moments can at times be only mere minutes apart. Over the first year in my new role, the I'm doing great part of my grief journey continued until we made the decision to add one more little one to the family. I was initially so ecstatic to become a mom of 4. But before I knew it, I became filled with this mental anguish that no one prepared me for when having a baby after loss. Waking up scared every single day. Walking through life in a constant state of worry. Carrying a Doppler monitor with me everywhere I go to reassure myself that everything is okay once I hear the baby's heartbeat. My doctors had me on extreme limitations because of how risk I was, and that only added to my constant fear. I stopped working out. I stopped traveling. I became a hermit when I wasn't working or at one of my kids' activities. Before I even realized it, I reverted back to doing instead of resting. Doing to alleviate my fears with money and doing to avoid my feelings. Seeking solace in these familiar, albeit destructive behaviors. The healing progress I made seemed to vanish. The lingering trauma I buried after my son's passing resurfaced, and I began a path of destructive avoidance. I went back to work 4 weeks after my daughter was born, just as the COVID-19 lockdown started, because I couldn't sit at home and deal with the wild range of postpartum feelings. Feeling so relieved she was here safely and feeling so angry that my son wasn't. So thankful that my husband was home with us and so confused about what the pandemic lockdown even was. In my best attempt to avoid the duality of emotions, I got back to work to be in my safe space. Since work was fully remote, I justified my choice to cut my maternity leave short because we were all home anyway. My husband was laid off due to the pandemic. I had support at home with the kids. I might as well go back to collecting my full paycheck. Plus, I finally had everything I wanted in my career. I found my dream job, a tech startup where I was seen as the expert and the strategic leader. It felt like the perfect place to be my safe space until I ran myself into the ground, spiraling out of control and reaching an emotional overload and point of no return. If only I knew then what I know now, I would realize I blamed it all on my job. Yet I was the real culprit of burning myself out. I told myself the story of work being the bad guy. They were expecting too much out of me. They were demanding I was available 24/7. They were killing me on the inside. I completely justified my desire to quit. And I ultimately handed in my resignation letter to my dreams because I was still blaming everyone else for my actions. Looking back, this was the first sign that I had more work to do. Because the reality is, I set all of those expectations on myself. I failed to set boundaries with me. I was trying to define my joy and my worth by working 80-hour weeks. I walked out of my office with the most picturesque view of the city on the 23rd floor for the last time. And what I thought was going to be the solve to all of my problems was just the beginning of years of chaos, forcing me to finally hit rock bottom in my life. Even though on the outside, I had it all. But of course, I didn't realize that. Being stubborn, I thrived on being a control freak. I continued this path of avoidance and making rash decisions for a few more years and an emotional breakdown after my daughter was born. That dream house where my kids were so happy, I convinced my husband it wasn't right for us and it was time to sell it. I packed them up and moved them halfway across the country to a city we had never even visited before. I started another job, loved so many aspects of it, then justified quitting because I still was not self-aware of my own triggers. Borrowed $50,000 and put our family in a financially rough spot to renovate the new house as an attempt to make my kids feel the comfort of the home they were forced to leave. And I spent a lot of time convincing everyone that I was so freaking happy. In reality, so many things about our fresh start in a new town I really was happy about. But the other truth is, my inability to face my trauma head on cost me and my family our dreams, our stability, and trust in my decision-making capabilities. It undid all of my recovery and healing from years prior. It made me so jaded at the world around me. Jealousy, anger, anxiety. You name almost any emotion on the uncomfortable side of the emotion wheel, I was experiencing it. It led me to a vicious cycle of decisions that made my life so much harder because I wasn't living in my full truth and I had not learned to fully take care of myself. The universe has a powerful way of shaking us to wake up. We are put on this earth to live full lives, to be joyful, to make memories, and to leave an impact. But in order to do that, we have to fully see that power in ourselves. The universe decided it was time for another major wake-up call. Remember, life's messy, balance is bullshit, and your dreams are totally within reach. Grab a friend, share this episode, and start brainstorming those biggest, boldest dreams together. Brainstorm battle buddies are the secret to life where survival is a skill set and not a way of living. I'll catch you next week for another 10 minutes of real talk on Highly Inquisitive. Love you big, Gabs.